Geopolitical issues of maritime areas continued, where we are now examining part C about the growing tensions and how they lead to a greater militarization of the seas of the world. So we've seen so far that there is an increasing pressure for the control of maritime areas, and it can result in acts of cooperation between the states, but also situations of tension and eventually of potential conflicts. And one thing that is important to have in mind is that all states are absolutely not equally powerful for the control of the seas. And in fact, only a minority of states are rich and powerful enough to be able to cast a certain influence out of their national waters. In fact, there is only one country that has a global influence with its navy. It's the USA today. It is by far the most powerful navy in the world, with 6 fleets scattered on the different seas of the world, 11 aircraft carriers, and more than 150 military bases distributed all over the world. So really there is absolutely no other country that can compare. We have already seen during the Malacca Strait case study this map, which is only a map of the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean and the West Pacific. And you can see that in addition to Chinese and Indian military bases and navies, there is only one country which is significantly present here, and that's the USA. But we are at this point really far from the US territorial waters, of course. So this is a very important pattern that we must keep in mind. Now there is also a trend, which is the rise of the naval power of a couple of regional powers, but one standing out, and that is China. China's naval power is really growing very fast in the region that they call the South China Sea, which is this kind of it's a bit like a Mediterranean Sea in Southeast Asia. It is south of China, west of the Philippines, north of Indonesia. So this is really a region of great importance. And in fact, the naval power of China has spread here, but China also intends to spread its naval power westward to the Hormuz Strait and the Middle East. And in fact, this is something I have already mentioned. China is currently funding many harbor facilities with other countries of South Asia. I mean, basically all countries except for India. And officially, this policy of funding is mostly targeting an objective of security of China's foreign trade. So it's a policy of massive investment that they call the One Belt, One Road policy, because there is one maritime road which is to be secured by all these harbors funded by China to permit naval trade. And there is also the One Belt aspect, which is the fact that a land road to Europe is being modernized and secured on the mainland as well. So that is really an important aspect of China's power projection outside of its borders. And about this growing Chinese naval military power in the Indian Ocean, we have already said that India is really worried about that. And for India, this strategy that they call the pearl necklace strategy of building like a necklace of harbors along the Indian Ocean, it's something that is very worrying. So there is a growing militarization of the seas, and in particular in that region of Asia, which is, as you know, the most dynamic region of the world in terms of economic growth in the context of the global shift. There are obviously numerous disputes over maritime boundaries, and Actually, an interesting statistic is that half of the world's maritime boundaries are not unanimously acknowledged by the states of the world, so disputes are really numerous. We will focus mostly on three important areas with three little case studies. And the first one will be precisely about this South China Sea dispute, or we should rather say disputes, because of the numerous countries that are involved. So it's a good example of an area, a maritime area, where national zones, I'm talking about the exclusive economic zones, EEZs, where they overlap. And of course, it is a logical source of potential tension or conflict, notably when, like with the South China Sea, you have an area of great economic importance. So let's have a look at this map. You can see on this map the blue dotted lines, which show the exclusive economic zones as they are normally recognized according to the Montego Bay Convention. So many countries are involved here, and the two areas which are the object of dispute are two archipelagos. In the north, you have the Paracel Islands, and in the south, the Spratly Islands. And so here is the list of the countries that are involved in this geopolitical battle. You have Vietnam, Malaysia, whose geography is a bit strange because Malaysia is present on the peninsula in the west and also on this big island of the Indonesian archipelago. So it has clearly many Spratly Islands in its exclusive economic zone. And in the east, you have the Philippines. We can add the microstate of Brunei, which is also involved in a way. And of course, the big neighbor who is strongly involved there is China. And even though the South China Sea is obviously a bit extended far away south of China, in fact, if you look at this red line, this is the area that China claims to be its own. And it's an old claim, almost since the creation of Communist China in 1949. Officially, China claims that these areas in the South China Sea should be controlled by them because of the possession of many islands in these archipelagos. And they claim that this had always been the case since the Middle Ages. So why is that so important? As I mentioned, it's because of the great economic importance of the South China Sea. We have talked a lot about the Malacca Strait. Well, basically, the South China Sea is what comes next or before. It depends on the orientation. When it comes to the foreign trade of China and other important economic countries like Japan or Korea. Moreover, it is a zone where the underwater resources are important, and it's true about fish. It is the main fishing zone in the world, and minerals and oil, and in particular oil resources have recently been found there, and we have already seen how desperate for oil are many countries of East Asia. So the strategy followed by the neighboring countries is quite clear. There is a race to claim possession of as many islands of these archipelagos as possible. All countries of the region are engaged in this race, but obviously the Chinese power is so much impressive than the individual naval power of all these neighboring countries that The result is the growing presence of China here. I will show you a bit later how China is actually demonstrating its actual occupation of as many islands as possible. The asset of the other countries of the area is that they are pragmatically supported by the USA. For a long time, the Philippines have been an ally of the USA, permitting a strong US presence, a military presence in the area throughout the 20th century, actually. And the Philippines are part of a large network of US military bases that in fact stretch from Japan in the north to India in the west. It's a wider network of military bases by which the USA is trying, and in fact more than trying, is actually having a strong naval military presence in all Southeast Asia, because the USA consider that the future of the world economy is here, and they don't want to be absent from this area, and they want to support the countries that can be, if not rivals, at least competitors to China, and that may counterbalance Chinese growing power here. And so, as I said, yes, the Chinese presence is really the one that is growing the fastest, and China is constantly showing its muscles, showing its strength in the region by multiplying military patrols, but also by sending as many fishing ships as possible, and even sending tourists. Tourism in the Paracels or in the Spratlys is also a way for China to demonstrate its presence in the area. And they do not hesitate to build reclaimed lands in order to demonstrate their actual presence. So, for example, you have this little island of Fiery Cross. It's in the Spratlys. Almost a couple of rocks only. This is how it was in 2014, and this is what it is now. It is actually a little airport, and in fact a small military base of China. So you have this current conflict, because it's almost a conflict. It could degenerate into a war between China on the one hand, and on the other hand, the Philippines and also Taiwan in particular, who are, with the help of the USA, trying to hinder this growing Chinese presence, which is really seen as the major threat of this epoch. Now, a bit closer to Europe is the issue in the Eastern Mediterranean. And it is an issue where France has chosen to play a certain role. Well, actually, we are mostly speaking of exclusive economic zones which are very close to one another, south of Turkey and west of Western Asia, that is to say what we also call the Near East. In the middle of this zone, you have the island of Cyprus. Cyprus is a member of the European Union, but actually it is a very strange place from a geopolitical point of view, because it is an island which is basically the object of a dispute between Turkey and Greece. And Turkey and Greece, they have really hated each other for years. Because of the numerous disputes they have for all the islands in the Aegean Sea, which is between Greece and Turkey. And in fact, since the 70s, there is an actual division of the island of Cyprus with a Greek administration in what we officially call Cyprus in the EU, and the little Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which is a state that is only recognized by Turkey and absolutely not by the UN or the European Union. But nevertheless, Turkey is present on the island, and Turkey is a rather powerful country with a powerful army. All the ambiguity of Turkey is that Turkey is a member of NATO, the US-led military alliance that unites many European armies, including the French army. So the situation is very, very ambiguous about Cyprus, and the question of exclusive economic zones has reappeared recently because oil and gas fields have just been discovered in the Eastern Mediterranean. So you have an alliance of countries of the Southeast Mediterranean, mostly Greece, Cyprus, and also Israel, who are trying to get together in order to exploit the oil of the region. But Turkey is very annoyed by this, and so Turkey has started to drill around Cyprus. In a way, this is totally illegal, but for Turkey it is not illegal because Turkey does not recognize Cyprus, and perhaps most importantly, Turkey is not a signatory of the Montego Bay Convention. Why is Turkey able to do that? Well, it's simply because Turkey is backed up by Russia on this matter in particular. And on this matter in particular, many countries of the EU are supporting Greece and Cyprus, notably France, and this is one of the reasons for the high level of tension between President Macron and President Erdogan in Turkey. And this European camp here is backed up by the USA officially. And so on this other map, you see what the Greek, Cyprus, and Israel country would like to achieve. In fact, they would like to build a pipeline in order to export oil and gas to Europe. And this is something that really annoys Turkey, that doesn't want to be left behind. So there is, at the moment, in the Eastern Mediterranean as well, a risk of conflict, a real risk of conflict between some countries, and in particular Turkey, Greece, and France, who considers the possibility of playing a role here against Turkey, which is something absolutely serious at the moment. And finally, we'll have a look at another strait. Obviously, international straits are hardly surveyed by the countries that use them, despite the fact that there are, according to the Montego Bay Convention, under a regime of transit passage, which means that there is a freedom of passage for any ships in the straits of the world. The Hormuz Strait is a very important one because, as you can see here, it is the strait that plays the role of the gateway of the Persian Gulf. It is surrounded by many countries which are oil producers, and you have basically southwest northeast conflict here because Iran is in conflict with most of the Arabic states of the western bank of the Persian Gulf. It's also due to a religious opposition. They are all Muslim countries, but the countries of Arabia are mostly Sunni Muslims, while Iran is the big Shia Muslim country, and well, they don't like each other basically. So look at the Strait of Hormuz and how it is uh, almost by definition the choke point, the ideal choke point. It is very narrow. It is very narrow. It is approximately 30 kilometers large. But in fact, the shipping lanes are even more narrower because they are large of 3 kilometers each. And so, for many decades now, you have tension between Iran and the Arabic countries. The Arabic countries being, for most of them, supported by the USA. And the reason why the stakes are so high in this zone is, of course, because the zone is the largest producing zone of oil and gas. You can see on this map in green all the oil fields and in pink the gas fields here. These are mostly owned by Qatar, by the way. Exports of oil and gas is largely done by pipelines. You can also see the pipelines on the map. But some of it is also exported by tankers. And these tankers are notably absolutely vital for the economies of East Asia, because almost all the oil to East Asia passes through the Strait of Hormuz every year. And so the actors of this zone are really worried about one thing. Could Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz? Iran being a country with a lot of enemies, all enemies being backed up by the United States of America, well, that is a question. So far, the answer has been no, because of the massive military presence of the USA in the region. You can see the numerous US military bases around the Gulf. This is a presence that has been really enlarged since the 1990s with the greater interest that the USA has taken in the Persian Gulf and its oil. And in history, we will later talk about the wars of the 90s and of the 21st century fought by the USA in the Middle East. France and Britain are also present in the region. There is French presence in Abu Dhabi, in the Emirates in particular. And the reason why all these Western countries are present here is that because they are interested in the oil which is here. And recently, some events have taken place which have turned into international crises. Notably in 2019, when some Saudi Arabian tankers, 4 of them actually, were damaged by a terrorist attack by a group that was supposed to be secretly supported by Iran. And so tension in the Hormuz Strait is really constant. The interesting trend to conclude about this is that the big military presence of the USA might decrease in the future, precisely because you have a certain disengagement of the USA in the Middle East, which is largely due to the fact that the USA has recently managed to produce its own oil, not only in the Gulf of Mexico, but also shale oil, which is exploited in the rocks in the center of the country. And the future interest of the USA seems to be more in East Asia and less in the Persian Gulf. But anyway, that is one of the most surveyed maritime area in the world. And lastly, we will say something about the Arctic Ocean. That's another interesting point, notably when it comes to thinking about the future of maritime areas. Indeed, the Arctic Ocean is raising more and more prospects and issues as global warming is about to open new navigable waterways along the Russian coastline. This is what is already called the Northern Sea route, in red on the map here, and another waterway along the Canadian coastline, which is known as the Northwest Passage. This trend is what we call the Arctic shrinkage. With global warming, the sea level is rising, as in fact the ice cap of the Arctic is melting and consequently shrinking. Well, these routes are not yet totally viable. There are still needs for icebreakers, and basically the travel is possible only 3 months a year. But travels are increasingly tried during the last decades, and it is now pretty sure that global warming will result in their opening. So there will be obviously benefits and drawbacks with the opening of these new maritime routes. The routes between China and the US or European markets will of course be much shorter. In fact, distance between China and Europe could be divided by 2. Positively, this could mean less oil lost to pollution, and well, from a strictly economic point of view, we can imagine that in the future we will have the development of some ports for transshipment activities, or maybe more, in ports that maybe already exist but are not hubs yet. New ports are constantly being developed. For example, there is a project in the north of Iceland of a major port facility that is called Fínafjord, and Iceland is really hoping that she has a future, maybe as a hub of the Arctic region. It might be excessive to dream to become a kind of Singapore of the North, but well, who knows what will happen really. There are also some drawbacks in the Arctic shrinkage, of course. It's not completely clear today if it will be economically viable. It will depend on many aspects, and there is a possibility that the waters may be too shallow, and that the insurance cost of these dangerous travels with all the icebergs will lead to very high insurance costs for shipping companies to use these routes. So maybe it will not happen. Maybe the big competition to the Arctic routes will be well, the Chinese facilities that are being built all throughout Eurasia, and maybe for a long time the existing routes will be more competitive. Also because for the moment there is no rich core area along the way. So you can't stop. There is no need for a stop in these northern routes, while most of the ships that travel from East Asia to Europe, they make many stops, and they make money anytime they stop. So that's another difference. Of course, there will be an environmental cost in the Arctic, and from an ecological point of view, that is very scary. The Arctic is one of the few areas of the world which are still almost unspoiled, and obviously with the opening of these routes, pollution will arrive, local pollution will arrive. Some other areas of the world will also feel a backwash effect if the Arctic routes are one day economically viable. We can think of a port like Dubai and a waterway like the Suez Canal. which is currently a major source of revenue for their countries, that could see their traffic decrease significantly. But again, this is only suppositions for the future. The Arctic shrinkage is also triggering a kind of race for exclusive economic zones in the area. You have 5 neighboring countries that are involved. Canada and Russia are the more important, but the USA, Denmark with Greenland, and Norway are also present in the game. And clearly, the state which has taken the most daring attitude to claiming possession of the Arctic Ocean is Russia. Russia made a very daring move in 2007, planting its flag just 4 kilometers below the North Pole. But it's a claim that was totally rejected by the United Nations. Anyway, we are a bit like with the South China Sea at the moment, heading for potential disputes and risk of conflicts for the possession of the seas, which is really part of the general question that I have asked about these geopolitical issues. In theory, the seas are free and international, but there is a growing territorialization by the states who are trying to take control of as much sea areas as possible. And to conclude with this issue, you can have a look at this cartoon which illustrates this race for possession of natural resources in the Arctic Ocean, and in parallel the environmental tragedy which is on the way with the melting of the ice cap, which maybe should be seen as a much greater issue than the possession of the resources, but unfortunately for many states the economy still matters much more than the environment.